but let's take a look at this move that we're seeing in pre-market trading. You've got shares up just about 11%. This coming after the AI powerhouse does it yet again. Shares soaring after reporting another quarter of record sales. Also, the company issued strong guidance, this showing that momentum for the AI boom still remains well intact. So let's break it all down. We want to bring in Dan Ives, Wedbush Securities Managing Director and Senior Equity Analyst. We've also got Paul Meeks, Harvest Portfolio Management Co-CIO. It's great to have both of you. Dan, let me start with you. I have your note pulled up right in front of me. You called this a game changer moment for tech bulls and AI revolution. What does this tell us just about the momentum that's behind AI investment right now and what that's going to do not only for Nvidia, the leader within this space, but what it means for many of its rivals out there as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia spoke, and this is going to fuel the rest of this tech ecosystem from the hyperscale players, Microsoft. You look at Google, Amazon, and others, and I believe this is a start going back to the fall of a new tech bull market. It's a Taylor Swift moment for tech bulls. And this is something where it's get out the popcorn, the bears go back deep into hibernation mode.
Paul, I want to bring you in here. I mean, when we hear on the call that Jensen Huang talking about the company's ecosystem and specifically who plays into that ecosystem, it's the OEMs, it's these original equipment manufacturers and design manufacturers as well. How much does this permeate to some of those OEMs who can also kind of ride on the coattails of this demand that Nvidia is seeing for its generative AI products?
I actually only want to appear so I can see what Dan Ives, my buddy, is wearing today. That's always my trigger.
He's in Hoodie Dan mode. I don't know who's better, Hoodie Dan or Hoodie Mellow.
I love it.
He's got it. Go ahead, Paul.
How you doing, Dan? All right, so here's what I think. I don't necessarily see that much of a play in some of the hardware OEMs. I think we continue for some time, at least the rest of this calendar year, maybe through next year, with the build out of large language models and then the inference from those models. And so I see opportunities maybe in hardware, something like a Supermicro that was hammered hard on the anxiety heading into NVIDIA's print. Of course, now they'll continue to rise with NVIDIA. But infrastructure build, first and foremost, for another couple of years before we really see plays in, like, for example, the AI-driven PCs. We'll see how that plays out for folks like Hewlett-Packard and Dell. But I am still squarely with AI and the continued build out of large language models and then inference before we step into that next realm. Because again, I don't think it's going to happen for a year or so.
Dan, the largest customers of Nvidia is big tech. You've got Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet making up about 40% of Nvidia's revenue. I bring this up because it begs the question, what happens when we start to see a reduction in CapEx from some of these larger players? Is that a risk to Nvidia, or how should investors be thinking about that?
Look, I think Paul nailed it. And he's been early on AI as well. I actually think 3 months from now when NVIDIA reports, he could be wearing my hoodie, maybe for the next quarter. But look, it comes down to, you look at CapEx, the big tech's, the strong getting stronger. I mean, when you look at Microsoft, they're still in acceleration mode. So that's just not a worry for at least the next 12, 15, 18 months. And remember, you haven't even had the consumer piece start to come in. That's why I believe it's a 1995 moment. Paul hit on it, the infrastructure. Right now, I think the big focus, second, third, fourth derivatives. The Godfather spoke. Who else benefits? That's why I believe this AI part is just getting started.
Dan, just to follow up on that, what does the consumer pick up? What does that early adoption need to look like in some of the core hardware and devices that this is going to play a huge role within and perhaps be lighter fluid for the way that we even engage with technology that's at our fingertips or in the workplace?
Well, Brad, right now it's all about enterprise. I mean, that's the golden goose for the next, call it 12, 18 months from an actual growth perspective. The consumer, that's what Meta's looking at. We believe Apple, that's what they ultimately unveiled, WWDC. You look at how Google's going to play this. That's going to be a 2025, 2026, which speaks what Paul said. I mean, this is just the beginning of this AI revolution.
So, Paul, it's just the beginning of this AI revolution, but talk to us just about how extensive Nvidia, specifically their moat is. And if it goes beyond that right now, if we're talking 5-10 years down the line, who else do you see as amongst the leaders within the space?
Sorry, you asking me? Sorry.
Yeah, Paul.
Okay. Yeah, so I do think that AMD, which is a company that had been given up for dead years ago, but it's very well managed now under Dr. Lisa Su, they will take some share. Now, they will take some share, though Nvidia, whether it's the continued build out of large language models or even in inference, will continue to have not the total share, which is essentially what they have now, but they'll still have a dominant share. But AMD should play a role. And also, I probably would, give, and I have this in my portfolio, some kudos to Taiwan Semiconductor. Taiwan Semiconductor will continue to enable all these folks. So I like not just Nvidia, I like Supermicro, I like Taiwan Semiconductor, I like some of the other semiconductor capital equipment companies like ASM. And then, of course, I do think AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, will gain some traction.
Dan and Paul, great to have both of you here on the day. We know that there are a ton of calls that are coming out this morning after this NVIDIA earnings beat here, with Jeffrey saying it's the de facto ecosystem standard for AI. We're going to continue this conversation. Hoodie Dan and soon to be Hoodie Paul as well, joining us here this morning.
Soon to be, baby. Yep.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.